Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today's video is going to be my review of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I'm going to give you the outline of the plot and then going to give you my opinions on the book, and then most importantly I'm going to read out your reviews. I got so many reviews to read out and so many things that I want to talk about that you mentioned in the book. So first up, this book, it's obviously a classic. It's about a woman called Jane telling you about her life. So she's saying, when I was a child, I lived with my aunt and her parents had died and her uncle had custody of her and her uncle died. So she was stuck with her aunt and her cousins who were absolutely appalling to her. It was so sad. So she had a very sad, unloved childhood. She then asks to go to school. So she gets sent to school and that's when she really finds herself. She loves reading. Jane is a very intelligent, sharp-witted individual, so she absolutely adores school. Then from school she needs to get a job. So she decides that she is going to be a governess. She goes to this mysterious house and looks after this little girl called Adele, and we don't know anything about Adele's parents. We never find anything out about Adele. We just know she's in the custody of this man called Rochester, who's very, very mysterious. And she asks a lot of questions Jane about Rochester because he doesn't live in the house, but Jane lives in the house and looks after Adele, and at first she doesn't have a lot of interactions with Rochester. Then she really does. The girl falls in love with Rochester, and then she finds out that Rochester is already married and the woman that he's married to is locked up in the attic and she has gone mad. And we don't really find out anything about the mad woman. It's all left very mysterious, which I think works really well for horror, because I love horror films, and in horror films if they go into too much detail as to who like the scary character is, it kind of loses a little bit of its mysteriousness, and we're always like, the thing we fear the most, I feel, is the unexplained. So I liked that it was very unexplained, certain things within it. So Jane then runs away. She then just happens to meet this family. I'm not going to go into it, but she was like related to them. Oh, what are the chances? And then at the end, she goes back to Rochester and she finds out that the mad woman in the attic set the house on fire, and he went to rescue the mad woman, but she'd thrown herself off the house, or so he says, let me just say. And then he is now blind, but he gets his sight back at the end, and he obviously was very hurt in the fire and he's become a recluse. So Jane goes back to Rochester and she lives with him, and it's kind of at the end, it's like, and she loves him and she realizes that her place in this earth is to look after him. I really enjoyed this book, and even though the plot didn't really go where I wanted it to go, I still really enjoyed it. I don't think you have to love the ending. You can still appreciate what the author's doing. So at the end I didn't really like that she ended up with Rochester, because I didn't really know if they clicked that much, to be honest with you. I was glad that she was back with Adele, because her relationship with Adele is of this little girl who doesn't have any parents. I felt like it was a little bit like a younger Jane, because Jane didn't have any parents and was looked after by other family members. I felt like she really looked after Adele and she really cared for Adele. And I liked at the end that when she got back to Rochester, she said about like, and obviously I hadn't forgotten Adele, and she sends Adele to a really great school. I would love a spin-off book about Adele. I really would. I really wanted to know what happened to her parents, what's that situation, how did she get into the custody of Rochester, why would he agree to that, because he's kind of a reclusive individual. Why would he say this little girl could live with him? But again, the whole thing was really mysterious and it was really creepy, and I liked that about it. It's a gothic, creepy story. I wouldn't say it was a romance for me personally, but other people might find it romantic. I just thought it was gothy, creepy, haunting. That's what I thought the whole entire book was, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I like tabbed moments, like absolutely adored the writing. Thought the writing was stunning. I loved Jane. I loved how the characters were very defined. So you could have had your own book on Adele. You could have had your own book from Rochester's side of the tale, you know, because they were all very defined. I have read and I've reviewed it, Wide Sargasso Sea, which is a book an author made about the mad woman in the attic and giving the mad woman in the attic her own story. Fabulous book. Go and read it. Absolutely fabulous. Because within this, the only like criticism I would say is I just wanted a bit more backstory of Adele, and I only wanted a little bit more on the mad woman in the attic. Like, I didn't want a man to tell us what had happened to her. I wanted her to have her own voice within the plot of the story. Oh, sorry if the lighting's gone on like, ah! Overall, I really did enjoy it. I loved it. I could definitely reread this. I feel like this would be a good wintry reread, so I might read this at Christmas time. Really enjoyed it. So this was my edition. It was the worst edition you could have got. This is the Great Writers Library, and the spine came off it completely and it broke down, but your editions are beautiful, so I'm going to put them up on the screen now. There were loads of different editions. I thought people would have the same kind of edition because it's like a classic, and like, what is it, that Penguin Library have brought it out and everything, but there was really nice different editions that I hadn't seen before. I haven't seen any of the films or anything like that. If I do watch one of the Jane Eyre films, then I will review it on the channel or the TV series, but I just haven't watched it yet. I really like Jane Eyre. I think it'd be great for a reread. It's a great haunting. So I'm going to get straight into your comments now because there are so many to get through, and I'm so excited. So I have my laptop here and I'm just going to get straight into the reviews. Naomi's Bookshelf says, I just finished Jane Eyre. It was one of my favourites. I love Jane. She's so strong of character and morals. Even though her life was so hard, she never gave up or turned cruel. I don't look at it like a romance. Yes, same as me, I don't think it's a romance, but as a single person's story as she grows, loves, and makes choices for herself that many people scoff at. 100%, and she doesn't turn cruel. She has so much cruelty throughout the book to her, and so much unfairness, like when she thinks her and Rochester are going to be together and then he's already married, and she's at the aisle thinking she's going to get married, something that she's never thought she's going to be married. She's always thought she's going to be of service to other people, like a governess, and then finally it's her day. She's not going to be this spinster and someone says, oh, he's already married, and that whole thing is just so cruel because you feel like she's finally getting her moment. But I like that comment that she doesn't turn cruel herself. The next comment is from Abe G. Sion, and this is, Jane Eyre is one of my favourite books of all time. I really love Jane's character, which is developed in a way that she seems to be a more independent woman than most women in the society at her time. Yet she undergoes a lot of changes throughout the story and finds her way back to Rochester, which is, although she's a very accomplished woman, she becomes an heiress to a way more suitable woman for him. Oh yes, so the thing with her cousin, I didn't really want to go into it because I felt at times that got a little bit rambly. So she becomes homeless because she becomes a runaway, and then this family take her in, and then lo and behold, oh my god, it's her cousins. She's never had any family up until this point, and she just wanders into this house. Oh my god, it's my cousins that I didn't know I had, and she inherits money basically. And so yeah, she is more suitable for Rochester, but Rochester would have married her anyway before the money because they had that, you know, sham of a wedding that didn't go through. But yes, thank you for reminding me of that. I think The Mad Woman in the Attic is a classic move of showing how women had to tame their nature and become timid so they'd have their roles as mothers and nurturers rather than free and independent human beings. But then again, I love this book. Mr. Rochester goes through a lot of changes since he starts to get to know Jane. He's a broken man, and I really admire Jane, the way she forgave him and came back, because she could have married the other more suitable partners. This again shows her strength of character. A lot of fantastic points there, yeah, really. Jane is so independent, and other books that were written at the time, women, like you said, are like love interests and very subservient, whereas Jane really has her own mind and her own point of view. And this was written by a woman, so, you know, there is going to be that within it. A lot of famous books in the 18th century were written by men, so the men writing women, whereas this is written by a woman. So I'm guessing Charlotte Bronte must have been a very headstrong person herself, and she must have put a bit of her character within it. Great points there. Next up, I have Lagatha, which is I love it. I'm not typically a fan of romance, with the exception of Jane Austen, of course, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get through Jane Eyre. Well, the way Charlotte Bronte told this story had me mesmerised from the first page. Yes, the writing style, mesmerising. That is a fantastic word that I wish I could use that. Like, be like, oh yeah, I came up with that one, mesmerising. But mesmerising is a perfect word to sum it up. It is. She just draws you in with her writing so quickly. I was hooked on it. I couldn't stop reading it. It was unbelievable. I didn't put it back down for a second. I was obsessed. Great point about mesmerised. It was so tragic and gothic and beautiful. This was my first time reading anything from the Brontes, and I'm excited to continue on. Thank you so much for hosting the read along. It was a gentle push that I needed. Same with me, first Bronte novel I've ever read as well. Next up is from Rosie Bellwood. I enjoyed this book more than I expected, as it's not my usual type of read, but I'm glad I listened to it on audiobook. I often found the long conversations a little tedious. I loved Jane's growth into an independent woman. It felt natural and gradual. However, I never really grew to like Rochester, and I couldn't stand St. John, such a controlling arse. Also, I would like to know more about where Adele came from. Oh my god, Rosie, we are like the same person. We are literally the same person. And Rosie, she has the amazing Instagram because she travels everywhere. We are the same person. I never warmed to Rochester. I never felt at the end that she should have really been with Rochester. I felt like she should have opened her own school, because at one point within the story she does run a school, and I feel like she should have used her money to open a boarding school for children who had grown up in orphanages, and she would have just given her life to those lovely children. Never really liked him, no. St. John, no. 100% needed more about Adele. I was craving more about Adele. Are there any books that are retellings from Adele's point of view? Because I'd love to know where she came from. And obviously we won't know because Charlotte Bronte didn't write anything. But if anyone else kind of imagined anything else with Adele, I'd love that. So yeah, Rosie, we are twins. We're the same person there. Lindsay Bren. I have just finished Jane Eyre and loved it. Thank you so much for having it in the book club. It gave me the push I needed after years of having it on my TBR. I really enjoyed the book being from Jane's perspective. I thought the pace was good and the story interesting, and the descriptions throughout without being long-winded. Not what I was expecting for a 400-page Bronte classic. I must have lived under a rock not to have ever had the story spoiled for me. So I love the plot twist and ending. All of the stars from me. All of the stars from me. I thought I knew the story. So if you watched my video and I was like, I've chosen Jane Eyre, I think I know the story, so I'm kind of spoiled for it. I did not know the story. I knew there was a mad woman in the attic. I didn't know about the fire. I didn't know about her running away. I didn't know about her ending up with Rochester. I knew none of that. I thought Jane Eyre was the mad woman in the attic. I thought she married Rochester and became enslaved as a mad woman in the attic. Why did I think that? What is that about? But I was convinced. I was like, oh, I'm just waiting for the bit where Jane becomes his prisoner in the attic. I didn't realise the Mad Woman was a separate character until I read Jane Eyre, so I was also living under a rock. Next comment is from Graham Stiller Reads Books. Hello, Graham. Reader, I've just finished Jane Eyre. I literally squealed. When I screenshotted this and it was a reader, I just finished Jane Eyre, I was like, ah! Because that's from within the book. I read half of it in a physical book and then from there listened to the remaining half as an audiobook. It was my first Bronte novel. I preferred listening to it than being read as opposed to reading it physically. While I enjoyed it, I did sometimes find it a slight slog. It was descriptive in the extreme. The spooky bits were good and the romance was nice too. A typical Victorian novel. I also really liked Jane as a character. She was strong, intelligent woman, but not to the point of showing off. I really lovely, oh my god, why can I not read this comment? I'm not being a very intelligent woman right now. Okay, a really lovely love story. It's because I want to talk about what you've already said. Yeah, no, I understand what you said. Sometimes it was a slight slog. 100%. When she ran away, I felt that was a little, and it was with the cousins and all that. I thought that was a little bit sloggy at times, and I wanted more day to day at her in the school, running the school, talking to the children, interactions like that. So I get what you mean about it was a slight slog. A typical gothic novel. I really like Jane as a character. A really lovely love story. I'm not sure I would have ever read the book had it not been June's pick. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Graham, for reading along. I then have Amanda Ollie. Before I started the book, I did watch the movie so I could dive into the novel and not feel threatened by it, because I just feel that when reading classics. First of all, kind of low-key loved it. Although I did find it painful at times to get through from being 400+ page books. I feel so sorry for Jane as she went through a lot. I mean a lot of faff with her family. I still don't know if I like Mr. Rochester. He didn't sit right with me. 100%, like you're with me and Rosie. There was something about Rochester that I found very manipulative and very creepy. And there was something I just couldn't warm to him. And then in Wide Saragossa Sea, that's very much showing Rochester as the villain of the piece. And I 100% like felt like, yeah, he is. And I clicked with that he wasn't a very nice individual at all. So 100%. Jane's life from when she was a little girl to an adult. Loved the ending, was so happy for Jane, and she finally got a break from it all. 3 out of 5 stars. Ooh, that's like a okay kind of book. It was just too long for me. Love you, girl. Looking forward to the video. Yeah, with the runaway bits, they did go on a little bit. And I didn't feel like, why did she have to run away from it all? I felt like she could have said, I'm staying on as a governess, but the marriage is over, Rochester. I don't want to talk to you. And then I could be frosty within the house. Yeah, but great review. Loved your review. Paul and Annie, I'm glad you finished it because you messaged me and were like, how many more days? I really want to finish it. So I'm glad you finished it. I did it. Charlotte Bronte, we finally met. I love it. Chloe Graham was like, reader, I've read Jane Eyre. I love it when people talk like that. First time reading this author, and I have to say that I fell in love with her beautiful writing. Jane Eyre has been a roller coaster of emotions, and right now I don't know how I feel about it. Ooh. On one hand, I love the gothic hints and the story of how the author seemed to speak out her ideas about society and women at the time through Jane herself. On the other, the romance was awful. Every conversation between them was awkward and cringy, even creepy at times. Also, Mr. Rochester's attitude towards his wife, oh Lord, we understand that you weren't happy and Bertha was mentally ill, but that doesn't justify the way you treat her, nor the way you speak about her. The last part felt quite slow, and I think it could have been shortened a bit, especially the part of the not romance with John was so irritating, and it didn't add anything up to the plot itself. Just more drama. That guy needed to chill down. She does have another romance when she runs away. Again, I found that very slow. And then someone else was interested in someone else and she was kind of playing like matchmaker, but I wanted it to get back to the plot. And I was worried about Adele. Like when she ran away, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to poor little Adele now though? Is she going to get a nice governess or a horrible governess? I'd connected so much to Adele. 100%. I never connected to Rochester. I didn't see the spark of romance between Jane and Rochester when they were talking. I wasn't like, ooh, they really get along. Ooh, the chemistry. I felt it was stilted, and I felt like he was kind of always testing her, the way he was talking to her, like he was just amused by her and testing her. So yeah, the romance didn't really work for me either. This seems like a very negative review, but don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it very much. As I say, the writing was so beautiful that I couldn't put it down. I'm very glad that I participated in the book club because otherwise I know that I wouldn't have read it. Thank you very much to everyone for participating in this book club. Got so many comments. Thank you so much because it's so nice when loads of people, we all get involved and then I can talk back in the comments in the video here. I love it so much because it feels like a conversation. So thank you so much for reading Jane Eyre. I feel like no one hated it in the comments at all. People either liked it or they thought it was a good novel. So it's like a good standard classic. There was no hate towards the book whatsoever. So this was a fantastic month for the book club. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed this review video. I hope you're enjoying my videos in July. It's obviously day 2 of July and I'm doing a video every day in July, so make sure you catch all of them. I haven't decided what my book club is going to be for July, what book I'm going to choose yet, but I will announce it on a post on Instagram. So this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this and I'll see you again tomorrow for another video.